Kansas State spent a lot of money in the transfer portal this season, and it didn't work out in their favor. But that doesn't mean they can't spend less. They need to spend more if they want to be competitive next year.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rauh, and thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen every single day. Welcome back to my everydayers. I hope you all enjoyed the first four in the NCAA tournament if you're watching that, as March Madness is here. Unfortunately, the Wildcats aren't in it, but we get to still enjoy some March Madness basketball. Before we dive in today's episode, because we're going to talk some basketball on this show, because a few things came out about Kansas State that we have to dig into, and the Big 12 as well. Before we do that, this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We're going to dig into an interesting topic today, something that we've probably talked about in the past as well, but it's starting to hit national media attention just a little bit more. And I think we have to have a bigger, more well-rounded discussion on that today. Just a few days ago, actually on Monday, On3, Peter Nakos reported and put out an article that was titled Kansas State's $2 million bet on Coleman Hawkins. Criticism comes with the territory. Now, this is in lieu of basically what happened after the loss to Baylor in the Big 12 tournament. There was a press conference with Coleman Hawkins. He was clearly emotional and, just talking about how he was upset that he wasn't either living up to his expectations or all the cases that might have happened, during the whole things with his tenure at Kansas State. Now, he was correct. Peter Nakos was correct in this article. He received $2 million to come to Manhattan for 1 year. This was leaked and reported by his agents. This was also pushed out by one of the biggest NBA insiders, and probably is the biggest NBA insider now that Adrian Wojnarowski is now gone, but Shams put it out as well. So it got a lot of traction that him and just another player around that same time, according to On3, Utah State's Great Osibor, who committed to Washington, had $2 million agreements heading into this last season. Now, when you think about this, Coleman Hawkins coming from Illinois, he transferred, averaged 10.7 points, 6.9 rebounds. We knew that we were going to get a really good player, but unfortunately, we didn't have a great year. Non-conference play really hampered us. And if you look at how the NCAA tournament panned out, like, for example, look at UNC, which we're going to dive into a little bit later on in the show about them only having one quad one win. If you would have had a greater non-conference schedule, we would be talking about a different conversation right now. We would be building up for the NCAA tournament because Kansas State would be in there. They would be dancing. Now, you can point fingers at Coleman Hawkins if you want to. You can point fingers at Jerome Tang if you want to. You can go at the entire team. That's where I choose to point my fingers. It was an entire team effort of why they didn't succeed this year. I don't think there was one specific reason. And to me, that might actually be a little bit more concerning. But at the same time, I have a lot of optimism because I think they're heading in the right direction. It's just an unfortunate feeling because you want it to happen right away. When you get the taste of an Elite Eight just a few years ago, and you get Jerome Tang standing on the press table and telling them, get used to winning, you want to believe that. And unfortunately, although I think we are very close to being in that spot, if something happens, which we'll just get to in just a second once I finish this thought, when you have that expectation, you want it now. You want that chocolate cake that you see in the store, that you bought in the checkout line. It was in the cooler. It was right there as soon as you walked in. You don't want to wait till you get home. You want to ask the clerk if he's got a plastic fork so you can eat it in the truck. You're ready to roll. You want that dopamine hit right away. You want your Kansas State Wildcats to be great, and you don't want a down season. Believe me, we all want that. There are 360 odd teams in the NCAA Division I that want to find a spot in that 68 every single year. I get it. I 100% get it. But the only way that they are going to continue to be better, and in the eyes of some of us who want to make sure that we don't push towards the transfer portal, because the portal just didn't work this past season, you have to go at it again. You have to dive right back in to the transfer portal. It will be different this time, though. Why do I think that? Let's take a step back at the transfer portal when Coleman, Hawkins, and Doug McDaniel came in last season. Who was on the team that you could say is a core piece to this team moving forward? David Gasson. That's it. It's the only player you could say that was on the team. You knew nothing about David Castillo. He was coming in as a recruit. You brought in multiple transfers because you let a lot of people move on. And it wasn't just Hawkins and McDaniel. Those are just two I brought up for the conversation piece. So many players came in. And that's why there was this disconnect. Something didn't happen before they got to non-conference, whatever that case may be. But they weren't clicking on all cylinders or even one cylinder once they did the tournament down in the islands, once they played LSU. They just didn't have what it takes. And then they were going into a very tough Big 12 conference. Again, which is one of the best conferences in all of college basketball. Maybe not this year, but take me 9 out of 10 years, I'm taking the Big 12 every time. Kansas State is going to have to jump right back into the transfer portal and spend. And there might even be a number that is triple to what they spent on Coleman Hawkins. You're going to have to do that. Why is it going to be better, though? Because it's not going to be the same type of needs that they had last season. They're not, hopefully not going to let everybody go. Now we're going to find out for sure in just a few days when the spring transfer portal window opens. We're starting to hear some leaks popping through on social medias. None of them have been from Kansas State. There's been a couple from the Big 12, unfortunately, from a certain team that might be worse than us right now, might be feeling a lot worse than us, which we'll be getting to in just a second. But I have a good feeling about this. Call it intuition, just call it a good gut feeling, whatever you want to call it. I have a great feeling, actually, that Kansas State is going to be able to solidify a core group of players, and they can build upon that. This whole buy-in portion is going to be a main focus when bringing players in for a visit. They are going to make sure that whatever happened during non-conference time, because that is really the main reason why we are not seeing Kansas State with a number next to their name right now, either playing in Dayton or getting ready to play a team for the NCAA tournament. The reason why is what happened before Big 12 play. It wasn't the peaks and valleys of the Big 12 play where they won the opener, lost 6 in a row, won 6 in a row, lost 4 in a row. It wasn't that. Although that didn't help, but that would have still got you in. It was the non-conference schedule that hurt your net, that gave you some quad 3 losses. It's exactly what hurt you. The main priority will be bringing in players as quickly as possible that fit the program's needs, that make sure the culture is bought in and they are ready to play next season when non-conference play starts. And the way you do that is you started off with a strong core of players who have already played with each other, something that you did not have last year. You didn't have it. We probably honestly should have been thinking about this a whole completely different way. I think we got excited about having a top transfer portal class, one of the top portal classes. I think I saw a second in one spot last year. I think we got excited that we were spending all this money thinking we're going to make a deep run. I mean, I'm guilty of that. But I don't think we looked at the intangibles of that they haven't played with each other. Everybody left. Who's the point guard? Who's going to run this team? You missed out on the tournament last year and you expect just a complete night and day turnover? I think we were wrong. And when you talk about the title of this report from On3 saying criticism comes with the territory, I think we deserve some criticism on how we acted as fans, expecting to be a lot better than we were. Now, I understand that we are in a brand new world of NIL and the transfer portal and recruits, whatever the case may be. That is not changing. And I'm actually okay with that because I think the athlete is long overdue and they deserve to be paid. And I think to an extent that we have to hold these athletes to a new standard because they are becoming paid athletes. They're paid to play. We've seen multiple teams. This is not a Kansas State problem, folks. This is a national problem. People understanding how to deal with this. This isn't just a Kansas State issue. This isn't fingers at Jerome Tang and his coaching staff. This isn't at Gene Taylor. This is at the entire world that is dealing with NIL. I mean, we saw Tennessee, a team that's a 2 seed in the tournament, sit one of their starters early in the season because he wasn't shooting the ball. That was it. That was enough for Coach Rick Barnes to say, we pay you to shoot the ball. If you don't want to do that, then don't play. Different coaches are going to have different standards. We'll see what happens with Kansas State moving forward. But what I'm saying is that they can't give up on this type of strategy. St. John's, a 2 seed this year in the Big East, 2 seed heading into the tournament. They were great in the Big East. Rick Pitino, what he's done with that school, only being the second year of his program. He's came out and said that he's not even looking at high school recruits anymore. He is going completely transfer portal this next season in the eyes of them already ready to go and run it back. And I expect St. John's to go pretty deep in this tournament. I think they have a very good path and can go pretty dang deep. And he's not even looking at a single high school player. Is that the right way to go for Kansas State? I don't think so. But it makes you think that every different team, every different program is going to have a different strategy to this. And I'm not saying anything new. I'm not saying rocket science here, folks. But what I'm saying is that you have to give this coaching staff and this program a chance. And after tearing it down to the nuts and bolts last season, only leaving a guy like David Gasson waiting to see who he's going to pair up with. And then, oh, by the way, national pundits thinks this team's going to make a deep run into the NCAA tournament. We stepped too far. The criticism should be on us. Look at it that way. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments, but that's where I'm starting to look at this team now. Am I disappointed that we're not in the NCAA tournament? Absolutely. Absolutely. I was watching the first 4 just last night, and I would love to be a team right now in Dayton. Wouldn't even care if we had to play one extra game. Just the chance. I mean, look at those 16 seeds, what they did. A Hail Mary throw with 2 seconds left, and you get to move on. And they're excited that they got to go play the top-seeded ranked Auburn in a couple days. But they got their chance. They got their story. Kansas State's story for Coleman Hawkins at Kansas State and David Gasson's last game at Kansas State is a lackluster defeat to Baylor. I would kill to have an opportunity to play in Dayton. So don't take me as a fan that doesn't want to see this team succeed. But I think we need to look at this from a different lens. I really do. I really do. And speaking of a different lens, I think there's a couple other things we should look at going into the college basketball tournament. You know, Kansas State's season officially came to an end on Sunday when they are no longer going to participate in any postseason tourneys. Their name didn't come up on any of those, but there is still a name that you can root for, and that's actually going to be in a game tonight. We'll talk about that and a lot more coming up next right here on Locked On Kansas State. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork connects you with a freelance expert who delivers incredible results. And instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps you find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business effectively. So visit upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's upwork.com, upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Today's episode is also sponsored by Fabric by Gerber Life. Life moves at you fast, especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take the first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. As a parent, I want to make sure my family is financially protected no matter what happens, and Fabric gives me that peace of mind. So join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health concerns. Welcome back to Locked On Kansas State. Almost 700 subscribers, folks. We are doing a great job. And I know this is like the slower month of things. Football season just ramping up. We're still waiting for spring practice. We're at that weird moment where the men's team is no longer playing. The women's team, we're getting ready for them to play. But stick with me. We have plenty of coverage every single day. No other place giving you coverage every single day than right here on Locked On Kansas State. So be sure to hit subscribe. Help us continue building and having a good adventure here. Kansas State Wildcats season is over. The men's team is over. They will not be participating in the NIT. Obviously, they're not in the NCAA tournament. And they will not be participating in the new crown tourney that Fox Sports is putting on. Their names did not pop up at all. We kind of already talked about this a few days ago. Jerome Tang expected them to not make any accept any bids. I don't even know if they were invited. The fact that he made that statement might not even have pushed out an invite, so I don't even know if that's the case. However, they will not be playing. And it's unfortunate. We won't see Coleman Hawkins play, although he is dealing with an injury. Even if they did make a tournament run with one of these postseason bids, you got to think he probably wouldn't play because he's getting ready to try and make a push to the NBA. David Gasson, he's going to have some options in the pros. Might not be in the NBA, but he definitely has a chance to play overseas, which makes sense for him as well because he is an international player. And there are still some players that you can root for if you want to just root for Kansas State ties in the NCAA tournament. And there's actually a game tonight with the first four. Tip-off is going to be at 8:10. This is the second game of the first four, the final first four game, because two happened last night. And that's between Xavier and Texas. And I don't think I have to remind you, folks, but one of the players that left in the transfer portal last year after spending 1 year with Kansas State is Arthur Kaluma. And he is now with the Texas Longhorns. He's actually their second leading scorer. He's their leading rebounder. He plays almost 30 minutes per game for the Longhorns, 12.4 points per game, 7.6 rebounds per game. I mean, it'd be great to would have had him on the team this year, but regardless of the case, he's going to be playing in the game tonight in Dayton. I believe it's on True TV. So if you want to root for Kansas State, hopefully to see if they can make a run, Texas can do it. There has been almost every single year, I think in the last 4 or 5 years, I saw a stat that happened during one of the first four games. I think it said 3 of the last 3 or 4 years, one team from the first four has made it to the Elite Eight. That's pretty impressive. They got to go an extra game, and they're finding a way to break through the brackets. I mean, North Carolina looked pretty good last night after not getting any quad one wins with the exception of UCLA during their season, which UCLA handed them that win if you went back and watched that game. San Diego State, for the record, was a quad 2 team, just barely, because it was a neutral site, only 1 through 50 in the net rankings. are seen as a quad 1 win. San Diego State is ranked 52 in the net. So North Carolina got that huge win against a quad 2. Still didn't find a way to get their second quad 1 win of the season, but they certainly will have to do that if they want to win again, as they will take on Ole Miss in the first round of 64. For the case of Texas, though, Texas has a chance. They're going to be playing Xavier, and we'll see if Kaluma can step up and play. I will certainly be rooting for him. I have no ill will against him moving on in the transfer portal. It seemed like that was the call that maybe even outside of the players. It sounded like the coaching staff did that. And I don't have any ties that make that decision or tell you if that's actually true or not. But just based on the mass exodus of everybody leaving last year, you have to make that assumption that it wasn't everybody deciding like, okay, I think we're just going to pick you, and you leave. I just don't think that's the case. So I hope Kaluma does really well. I'm excited to see how he plays in this one. You know, speaking of some of these other tournaments, though, the Crown Tournament, I thought that maybe Kansas State would play in before we heard that thing from Coach Tang saying that they're not going to play in any postseason tournaments. Well, the Big 12 has a lot of teams that are going to be participating in them. First and foremost, I think the funniest thing I have to say is that Utah, they get their final chance to actually participate in a tournament in Las Vegas. Heard a lot of former Pac-12 teams over this last couple weeks saying how they think the tournament should not be in Kansas City, the Big 12 tournament. And let me tell you what, that is completely false. One of the best places to play any type of tournament is most definitely in Kansas City. But there's multiple teams for the Big 12 that's going to be in it. Now, this starts March 31st. This is going to be quite some time away. But in each corner of the bracket, if you will, this is only a 16-team tournament, but Utah's in it. You have Arizona State that's going to be in this. You have Cincinnati, UCF, Colorado. I mean, you have 5 Big 12 teams that are going to try and battle for the crown. Now, this would have been a fun one just to watch, one because Fox is going to put it on. So you got to think there's going to be some nice national coverage in this one, and it would have gave the opportunity for their players to make some cash because this is a nice cash tournament. And I think this is the next step forward for postseason tourneys. It's not going to replace the NCAA tournament by any means, but I think it might replace the NIT. It might become the second tournament when it's all said and done. And I think we kind of already got a taste of that with the teams that accepted bids to the NIT and didn't accept bids to the NIT, but accepted bids to the crown. The NIT also got in some weird trouble, if you will, having to send an apology out to South Alabama. Not sure if you saw that. Just a little basketball news here. I know it's not Kansas State or Big 12 news, but they offered too many bids out, and they had to actually rescind their invitation to South Alabama after already them accepting it. So that's got to feel bad. That's got to be a rough feeling being South Alabama, thinking you're going to play postseason basketball, getting your hopes up. And obviously for the program, that's some money-making opportunities as well. And then the NIT shutting that down. That's just got to feel rough. Before we get into the final topic here, we're talking NCAA tournament. I want to talk about some who I like overall. You look at the number 1 seeds. When I was filling out my bracket, and we definitely got some brackets to fill out. I've filled out a few in a few different spots, all the same bracket though. I always keep the same, but a couple people have invited me for groups. It was really hard for me to pick upsets this year. And to me, that makes me feel like there's going to be a lot of upsets. But it seems like there are a few teams that are above everyone else. And when you look at the number 1 seeds, some of the 2s as well, I feel like it was really hard to pick against them. Either the paths they had or just how good those teams have been all season. It makes it hard to think that a team can pull the upset. Now, this is March, and it happens all the time. So there are a few teams that I do think are going to happen. I will say this, as we are getting close to the tournament time, and I don't think we're going to probably talk about it again, I have Houston winning the whole thing. And I know it's a number 1 seed, like I just said, but what we saw against Kansas State and Houston, when I talked about, there was opportunities for Kansas State to win almost every game they lost this season. There was a reason. You could pick out a reason, maybe 2, to why Kansas State should have won that game. And you could say, insert game here, they should have won because. The only game you couldn't have done that is Houston. Houston beat us fair and square. And I'm not saying that we were the pinnacle or the Mendoza line even of determining why Houston's a great team. But that's one of the reasons, because I watched that game, obviously. But I've watched a lot of Big 12 basketball this year. And I've watched Houston just be a team that seems above and beyond everyone else. They look so good. And my focus is the defensive side. When you got to play tournament games so quickly, every other day, when you're in the first two rounds, you get a couple days off before the Sweet 16, whatever that is, it's still not a lot of time. Defense prevails. You can easily get cold on the field shooting. You can easily get hot. No doubt about that. But defense prevails. And I don't know if there is a better defensive team in the entire country than Houston. That's why I'm pushing them for this tournament. But don't sleep on teams like BYU and Drake. I want to throw that out as well. I think those are my two sleepers that can make deep, deep runs. BYU and Drake. Yeah. All right. Plenty of Big 12 teams that can participate, as I said, in the Crown. Lots of things like that. So let me know your thoughts. Who's your favorite in the NCAA tournament? I'm taking Houston. I think I have Houston versus Michigan State. I think that's who I picked for mine. So keep that in your thoughts as we continue on here at Locked On Kansas State. We'll finish up this show as one Big 12 team may actually have had it worse than us this season, especially in the last few days. Let's do that as we finish up this show right here on Locked On Kansas State. This episode of Locked On Kansas State is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, folks. No, it is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building your wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control out of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. I mean, what a deal, right? monarchmoney.com. Check it out. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
And welcome back. And I see that this is going to be a long one today. Sorry, folks, but we're just getting into the thick of it here on Locked On Kansas State. Had a lot to talk about. Wanted to dig into that first segment a lot because I thought it was a super important topic that needed to be discussed. And I'd really love your thoughts in the comment description below. I want to see if you think the same thing as I do. And if not, I would love to hear your opinion. And if you think I'm completely off, I would love to hear your debate. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Let me know in the YouTube comment description below what you think about that first segment and your thoughts. And then what you think about this coming up. Has West Virginia, do they have it worse than us right now? Kansas State, obviously a team that spent so much money in the transfer portal, thought they were going to make a deep run, which I think we probably should have seen maybe otherwise. Maybe we had our blinders on, right? West Virginia might have it worse than us. Snubbed in the NCAA tournament by a team like UNC, although they looked great last night. Should they even been there? That's the biggest question. West Virginia most definitely should have been there, whether it was over UNC, whatever that was the case. And then on the day that they were supposed to play in Dayton, Ohio for the first four, their head coach heads off to Indiana. So not only are they sitting with their thumbs, not playing postseason basketball, one of the greatest players in the Big 12, in my opinion, Javon Small, who didn't even get named an AP team, all team in the country, which I think is a complete shock, in my opinion. as a Big 12 believer. He was only named honorable mention. Doesn't get a chance to go in the NCAA tournament for his entire collegiate career. That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. So getting snubbed, losing your coach, that's a big miss. And you have to think that West Virginia is going to take a big step back moving forward next year, because this is going to be their third new coach in 3 years. Ever since there was the incident with Bob Huggins, new coach came in, and then he heads off to Indiana. Now a new one's going to have to come in. Makes you wonder what West Virginia is going to do next. Will they go after Drake again? Ben McCollum, maybe. Who knows? But you have to think that West Virginia is going to take a big step back unless they have a huge transfer portal right away. I mean, in this era, you can retool right away. But with West Virginia having so many concerns and question marks on if they can keep the right coach around, you got to think it might take them a year or two to get back to the right path. That might be a good thing for Kansas State, but I will argue that that is a terrible thing for the Big 12. It's a great thing for Kansas State, who's looking back to be a contender, with Jerome Tang, but it's not a good thing for the conference as a whole. Coaches continue to get poached from this conference. The best basketball in the conference, in the country, over and over again. I'm going to say it. I will take this conference 9 out of 10 years. I know the SEC just got 14 teams in the conference into the tournament. Now, I think 14 was a little much. I think you could call a little ESPN bias there, and I would believe you, and I will be okay with agreeing with that, because I think there are plenty. And I could go on a tangent about if you have a sub 500 record or losing 2/3 of your conference games, why are you seen as an at-large bid? I could have a whole conversation about that, and I'd be pointing at a couple SEC teams. But anyways, I do think that this is an issue for the conference. Coaches continue to get poached, moving to greener pastures, if you will, is why they're moving. And what I mean by green, and that's the key word here, they're searching for brand recognition, more university support, and especially, use a Coach Tang buzzword here, buy-in. But the buy-in here is when it comes to the money in this portion and the battle for the NIL front against other schools, when battling it out for top recruits or top transfers in the portal. I mean, I just let off the show talking about the $2 million man of Coleman Hawkins. That's not going to be uncommon soon. It's actually going to be the majority of Power 4 schools. But if the programs like the Big Ten and the SEC continue to poach coaches, and those coaches are willingly going, because there is obviously something that is better in the eyes of these coaches with the Big Ten and the SEC. Let me warn you what that is. It's something that you rub between your fingers. It's money, folks. The Big 12 is not doing that as well as the other two conferences. And in this day and age, it is all about the money. I'll leave you on this note as we head out on this wonderful Wednesday. And again, I hope you enjoy the tournament. We'll be back here tomorrow with so much more to talk about. Can't wait for the women's to start on Friday. I want Kansas State to win by 40. Anyways, on 3, Jamie Shaw asked an ACC coach what it would cost to build a team in the upcoming portal cycle. Coleman Hawkins, remember we talked about him at the beginning of the show, $2 million. This ACC coach reported, said, quote, "It'll be about $6 million to be a top 25 team." Does our collective have what that takes? How many Big 12 schools have what that takes? And if they do have what it takes, how many have what it takes to compete against the SEC and the Big 10 when they continue to poach our coaches? And you dang well know they're going to do it with the players come this transfer portal. Let me know your thoughts in the comment description below. Love having you here as always. Thanks for listening in. Please like the video. Please subscribe. And this has been Locked On Kansas State.